The Indiana Fever, congratulations, you four. You guys have successfully broken Caitlin Clark. Great job. You guys have tried your damnedest to turn her into a role.
What we are witnessing is a systematic breakdown in how a generational talent is being utilized. The leadership of the Indiana Fever, head coach Stephanie White, general manager Kelly Krauskopf, and president Amber Cox appears to be pursuing an approach that has sparked growing debate among fans and analysts. Rather than building the offense around the extraordinary strengths of Caitlin Clark, one of the most dynamic playmakers the game has ever seen, the organization seems intent on fitting her into a more traditional and structured system. Critics argue that this approach limits the creativity, pace, and freedom that make Clark such a unique weapon on the court. Yet the real story extends beyond the system itself. The decisions being made now could have lasting consequences for the franchise, the team's future, and the development of a player widely viewed as a transformational figure in women's basketball.
Rogue, yeah, these networks get exactly what they asked for. They get exactly what they get every penny of what they asked for. But when she doesn't go rogue, when she plays within the system, when she gets subbed out 3 minutes into the game, and then plays for a few minutes, then subbed out again, and then plays for a few minutes, then subbed out again.
Network executives at CBS, NBC, and USA invested heavily in broadcasting rights because they recognize the immense appeal of Caitlin Clark's game. Audiences tune in to watch her deep-range shooting, her ability to create opportunities with impossible-looking passes, and the unpredictable brilliance that emerges when she's allowed to take control of the game. When Clark plays with confidence and freedom, she generates a kind of excitement that drives record-breaking viewership and elevates the entire league. However, critics argue that the current coaching approach has done the opposite, favoring a tightly controlled system that limits her creativity and natural instincts. As a result, the player who once energized every possession too often appears frustrated and disengaged, watching from the sidelines instead of dictating the action on the court.
You get rid of those four and you get rid of your stooge of an agent, Aaron Kane, you'll be free. And I know we don't want her to go the LeBron route, but at this point, you need to get rid of Aaron Kane and you need to call Rich Paul immediately.
This situation also raises questions about the business and representation infrastructure surrounding the organization. Critics argue that the response from Caitlin Clark's current representation, led by Aaron Kane, has been notably quiet despite growing concerns about how the franchise is managing its most valuable asset. Some observers compare the situation to the approach taken by major sports agencies, which are often known for aggressively defending their clients in both public and media arenas. They suggest that a more proactive representation strategy could help counter negative narratives and ensure that Clark's interests remain protected. As it stands, many believe she is facing criticism from outside the organization, while also operating within a system that limits her influence on the court. However, the most significant aspect of this story may not be the criticism itself, but a larger issue that has largely escaped public attention.
Y'all need to listen to this real quick.
Don't let up at all. They're going to stay full. They're going to be disruptive. I think for us, I think we got to get the ball inside to our post players. I think that's one way, or one key to the game that will help us win, is to get AB and Mo and really.
Let us analyze the actual basketball strategy being deployed here. The directive to force the ball inside completely ignores a roster's actual capabilities. Monique Billings is averaging less than 10 minutes per game, and Aliyah Boston, while incredibly talented in the mid-range, is still developing consistency when finishing through contact at the rim. More importantly, initiating the offense through post touches neutralizes the most dangerous weapon on the floor. When you have a guard who commands double teams 30 feet from the basket, the logical approach is to run high pick-and-roll actions that exploit that defensive gravity, create open lanes, and force opponents into impossible decisions. Instead, the current approach minimizes the impact of the player who places the greatest pressure on opposing defenses and limits the advantages that her unique skill set brings to the offense.
Stephanie White on why Aliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark subbed out at the 6:30-minute mark, after which Portland went on a 13-2 run. Well, AB is still on a minutes restriction, so that's why she's coming out, and that's typically around the same time that we've taken Clark out before. None of that is good at all. None of that is good at all. But again, wait, why are you specifying AB's on a minute restriction, but you're not specifying Caitlin Clark's on a minute restriction? Explain, please. We did it in Golden State because, quite honestly, we didn't want Raven in that environment without another ball handler on the floor, but that's been our typical...
The justification for these rotations simply does not hold up to statistical or logical scrutiny. Pointing to Aliyah Boston's minute restriction may explain her substitution, but it does little to justify removing the team's primary ball handler at the exact same 6.5-minute mark. The decision raises questions about the overall strategy and whether the rotations are maximizing the strengths of the roster. Furthermore, references to the challenging environment in Golden State suggest a developmental philosophy that many would consider flawed. Franchise cornerstones are expected to grow through adversity, not be shielded from it. Learning to perform under pressure in hostile arenas and against motivated opponents is a critical part of building a championship caliber player and team. And this is where the discussion begins to move beyond basketball strategy and into something much more personal.
But I'm gonna use it anyway. Folks, you mow your lawn. What do you do before you mow your lawn? You start your engine. And what do? You let that engine warm up because it needs to warm up. Aliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, they're your engines. Got to start that engine, let them warm up. 3.5 minutes isn't enough to let them warm up. They finally get into a rhythm. You get an 8-4 lead, 8-2 lead, and you take them out. Well, now they got to start their engine again. But now we're not starting our engine to begin the game. Now we're starting our engine in the rhythm of a game of momentum we've already lost. This is coaching malpractice.
What makes this entire situation so unprecedented is the belief among critics that the Indiana Fever have been handed a generational talent and economic powerhouse, yet continue to treat her as if she were merely another piece in a long-term rebuilding project. Many argue that Caitlin Clark transformed the landscape of women's basketball before ever playing a professional game, yet the organization appears to view its development timeline very differently from the rest of the basketball world. The criticism centers on what some see as an outdated philosophy that prioritizes paying dues, respecting veteran hierarchy regardless of talent gaps, and forcing players to conform to rigid offensive systems before granting them greater freedom. History, however, suggests that truly transcendent athletes often require organizations to adapt around them rather than the other way around. When a player can reshape defensive schemes and alter the geometry of the court with her shooting range and playmaking ability, many believe the system should be redesigned to maximize those gifts rather than restrict them. Critics further point to the psychological impact of unpredictable substitutions, off-ball assignments, and public comments that appear to diminish her role, arguing that such decisions can gradually erode a player's confidence and natural aggressiveness. Concerns have also been raised about whether the emphasis within the organization has shifted too far toward conformity and acceptance rather than empowerment and innovation. Beyond basketball, supporters argue that the stakes extend to the league itself. The WNBA's growing television audiences, expansion plans, and future financial opportunities have been closely linked to the exciting, fast-paced style of play that Clark helped popularize. As a result, some believe that limiting that style not only affects one player, but also diminishes a product that broadcasters and fans have enthusiastically embraced. With major matchups approaching and expectations continuing to rise, pressure on the coaching staff and front office is only expected to increase. Those who share this viewpoint believe meaningful change must come quickly, whether through adjustments in strategy, stronger advocacy from representation, or a greater willingness from Clark herself to assert the style of play that made her one of the most influential players in basketball. In their view, this moment represents a defining crossroads, one that could shape not only her career trajectory, but also the future direction of the franchise and potentially the league itself.